Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
All right, greetings and welcome to Live Talk. I am your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my two co-hosts, Minister Samuel
Hey, welcome back again to Live Talk.
and the spiritual ambassador, Yike Ezekiel.
Peace. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, before we do anything, let's go to our general statement and disclaimer.
General statement. Live Talk is proudly powered by TBS Goodwill, Builders of the Highway Foundation, and Men of Purpose. Together, we're bringing about awareness to the everyday challenges facing individuals, communities, and our nation. We tell our stories, listen to yours, and always respect different perspectives. Want to share your voice? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com to be a guest, or if you would like to contribute to our mission, purpose, go to livetalkorl.com to give a donation. Disclaimer. Information provided during this event and others to come does not constitute the official opinion of Live Talk or its affiliate entities. It is strongly recommended that viewers seek independent expert advice regarding any topics discussed, as legal requirements differ significantly across jurisdictions and are subject to frequent changes. If you have questions or concerns, you can always email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook and or Instagram at Live Talk Orlando.
All right. Definitely have to get that out of the way. My brothers, how are you doing, Minister?
Hey, we doing good, of course, on this Saturday morning. Shabbat for some. So always looking forward to a lively conversation on Live Talk.
I see that fancy background you got there too. I see where you're at.
Yes, yeah, we tried to step it up a little bit.
All right, my brother Yike Ezekiel. How you doing, sir?
I am doing magnificent. All is golden, all is moving forward, and it's all about just daily progress.
All right. So I hope we all are ready for this conversation today. I'm doing as well. I'm doing well this day. Doing pretty good. Just making sure that we have a productive and enlightened conversation today. But we're going to be talking about something heavy, y'all. But let's give our audience just a rundown of the show today. First, we have the minister word of today. Right after that, we'll go to a commercial break. And then we'll come back. Our main topic today is back to school. But are we really being educated? And we'll then go to another commercial break. And I believe we'll stay on this topic due to the fact that it's a very extensive, broad topic that we're going to be talking about today. So we may stay in there, but we'll end with a motivational quote or reading from the host. So with no further ado, Minister, what is the word of today?
Let me get here. Our word of today, we're going to actually go with education. So for August 15th, 2026, our word of the day is education. And it can be defined as the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. Education is the theory and practice of teaching. It is information about or training in a particular subject. Education, the action or process of teaching or being or becoming educated. It is the act or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself or others intellectually for mature life. Education, a purposeful activity aimed at achieving goals like the transmission of knowledge, skills, and character traits. Some synonyms are schooling, teaching, instruction, training, tutoring, and development. So our word of the day, education.
Loving it, because we're going to talk a lot about education today on different levels as well. So I really do appreciate that word of today, my dear brother. And right now we're going to go to a commercial break, and we will be right back.
Because Scott and Associates always treats me like family, I refer my family to them. So when preparing for my taxes and I know exactly what to bring in coming in, it makes the process so much easier. Anyone should hire Scott and Associates because they are professional, respectful, and very knowledgeable. And with all of my heart, I can always count on them.
What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zodi toothpaste. Zodi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zodi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zodi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at noystore.com.
All right, so make sure that you get your all-natural toothpaste at the noystore.com. That's the noystore.com. We manufacture this toothpaste. Again, it's an all-natural toothpaste. And this over to my engineer. Gonna give you a little bit close up on that. We still don't know if you see it or not, but you can always go to the noystore.com. You definitely will see it there.
I like the way I see it displayed all over your desk.
Right. Yeah, so definitely support is Black-owned business, support Black-owned. This is just the way, if you haven't contributed or supported a Black company this month, the way to do so. All right, family. Like was mentioned before, back to school, but are we really getting educated? We know that we sent our children off to school, and so school is back in session. Parents are buying school supplies, children are getting back into the classroom, teachers are preparing their lessons, and everyone is talking about education. But today, I want to ask a question that might make some a little uncomfortable. That's okay. Be a little uncomfortable. Are our children really being educated, or are they simply being trained to pass through a system? And I'm not asking that question to disrespect teachers. I'm not asking to attack our schools. I'm asking it because education should ultimately prepare a child for life. So what exactly are we preparing our children for? Now, I want us to just think about that for a moment. And if I may give our audience a question, that same question I want to give to our audience. What are our children being taught today in school? So let's give that to our audience. What are our children being taught today in school? If you got a mic, you can ask me again. You got to send me a hand signs and hand signals. That's speaking the mic. All right, brothers, back to school. And we're talking about education. I know, Brother Minister, you shared with us a little bit of education. But when you hear the word education, what does education mean to you?
Okay, for me, it brings to mind a scripture or a verse that a lot of us should be familiar with, and it states, "Train up a child in the way he should go,
Mm.
and when he is old, he should not depart from it." And I know we've heard that a lot, but what I get out of that is education is a lifelong journey, and it is a process of, you know, from the beginning, and then using what you get from the beginning to build you up, to take you forward, not just through like formal education or academic education, but also a life's education, which is where a lot of people hear, when he old, he should not depart from it. What that means is that takes you from the beginning, from a babe, all the way to you an elder, is an education process. And education is kind of like, it's a foundation for intellectual curiosity. It should be for critical thinking, how to problem solve. It should teach you to raise questions so you can explore, making sense of the world that you live in. So education is to me, is multifaceted, but it begins from a babe in your home, and then whichever method of training you decide, whether that's homeschooling, uh, public education, private education, online, but it also should involve the community when it comes to experience of living, like living your life and being a part of, the world that we live in, kind of being in unison. And it's education for me is very broad.
Yeah, you touched on a lot when it comes to education, because one of the questions I was going to come back on is, when we think about education, my mom always, um, she wanted a graduate, coming out of the household. So me going to school and graduating was mean the world to her. And one of the questions what came to mind was, is education simply getting good grades and graduating, or is there more to it? And you shared a lot that was more to it. But I think there's maybe some missing points in there that we can define education a little broader, and probably in more details. I ain't gonna say broader, because like you said, education is broad. But I'm gonna ask you this, Ezekiel. What do you think is missing from the way we define education today?
The biggest point that I see is when people hear the term education, they're thinking that this is a process that's pouring into you, instead of it being a process that's extracting out of you what's already in you. We know, if we looked at the etymology of education, we know it's educe. And educe means to bring that which is in out. So you already, as a human being, are equipped with certain genes and chromosomes that will allow you to learn the world that you live in. You don't teach a baby how to breathe, how to blink. That's automatic. So education, the systematic instructions, which was part of the denotation that the minister read earlier, means that there is a system that will instruct you on how to become whatever endeavor you're engaging in. So if I want to be a chef, when I go to chef school, they have a system, which is a step-by-step process that'll take me from being somebody that don't know how to cook to a world-renowned chef, if I follow the process that's laid out before me. So the question now is the American educational system giving us a process that will make humanity productive? That's the key question, because if that's not the case, then there's no need to send your child to that particular education system if you're not going to be able to yield the desired result of the parents. If I want my child to become a professional football player, I'm not going to send him to hockey school. I'm going to send him to where they can teach him football. So we have to ask, is the system preparing our children to be productive in whatever path or career they choose in life? And again, that information has to be given in a systematic manner in order for them to be able to acquire the skill set that's necessary for them to have success in life.
I like where you went with that. You talked about education, and you talked about a part of that first part of education, which is educe, and you broke down the etymology of that. When we look at the whole word educate, and this was something I looked up before, and I noticed one thing: the etymology of the word educate is educare. It comes from the Latin educare, and it means, like what you just mentioned, to bring up, to rear. But one of the things that stood out was to nurture, to nurture, to nourish. I mean, and to nourish means to promote the growth of, encourage, cultivate, to foster. Now, this tells me, and it's going back to you, Minister, when you saying in the household, this tells me that the home has a lot to do with the upbringing or the nourishment of the child to get to that point where they're going to a school system and they're able to cope and learn in this system. Now, that nourishment, we talk about that starts with us eating properly. I always tell even my children, I say, everything starts with how you, with that child conditioned at home. If they're eating properly, if they're in a household that the parents have been, brought up on educare, that means that they had a form of education in their household, a form of nourishment that prepared them mentally to go to be able to extract the information that they already have in them. Like what my brother Yikazika said, that information is in you. It's just bringing that information up out of you at that time. But if you was in a household and your parents wasn't nurtured themselves educationally, then the chances of you being educated is left in the hands of a system, like what you were saying, that never cared for the education of our children. And if that's the case, then we have to reevaluate what education means to us. Remember, keeping us ignorant, keeping us uneducated was a way to control us. So now if we are conscious of education being a pathway to our success, then we need to look at it on a broader level. Like the minister said, we have to look at it on a broader level, because a child can graduate high school, go to college, get a degree, and still not know how to manage money, start a business, purchase a home, understand credit, or navigate the real world. So maybe the question isn't whether our children are going to school. The question is, what are they actually learning when they go to school? So our children are entering classrooms with different circumstances, different challenges, different family situations, and different expectations than their white and Asian counterparts. These are all challenges that our children face today. So I want to start a little personal. I want to go back a little bit. When you look back at your own education, what did school prepare you well for? And what did it not prepare you for? And what were some of the challenges that you endured along the way, Brother Ike Ezekiel?
School prepares you for a myriad of things. You know, it teaches social interaction first and foremost. And with that being said, it taught you how to deal with conflict resolution. It taught you how to control your emotions. It taught you how to express your emotions, because you're dealing with a multitude of different ethnicities in the school system that you was going in. So it taught you basic, math, sciences, how to read, fundamental things that you're going to need all of your life. However, it didn't teach you how to become an independent thinker. It didn't teach you problem solving. It didn't teach you how to manage money. As you said, it didn't teach you how to create a business. It didn't teach you the vital traits that you would need once you graduate high school to become an adult and live the life of adult. Nobody's being taught credit, debt. They're not teaching financial literacy in the school system to where our children have an understanding of how money flows. So that's why it's so easy for them to get into so much debt, because they don't understand that. They don't understand when you get a credit card, they don't even know what an APR is. So now they're thinking that somebody just blessed them with some free money because you get to spend money without seeing it. Not understanding that these credit cards come with basically a 19 to 30 or 40% APR. So what costs you $10 may end up costing you $17 or $18 because of the interest rate. So we don't understand these things that you're going to deal with every day as an adult. How to pay your mortgage, how to pay your bills, what it means to be late, what it means to. So this information is not being instilled inside of the systematic process during school, but they get PE, they get non-essential things that's not going to really benefit them in life. So I know for me, the school system definitely didn't get me that level of education. You grow up and you're functionally illiterate of how money works. You don't have a trade because they're not teaching that in the school systems anymore. So everybody is not college material. So what am I going to do if I'm not an athlete? My family don't have the money to put me through school. So how am I going to be successful in life if nobody's taught me that, okay, you can have an alternative. You don't have to go to college. You can get a trade that makes the community, the nation float. The world going to always need plumbers. They're going to always need electricians. It's going to always need IT techs. These are staple trades that will always bring you an income, and that's going to always be needed. So the school system, I think, is failing the children these days because, one, they're not teaching them financial literacy. And two, as you alluded to earlier, they're not teaching them dietary laws. And this is why our children are at an all-time high with HDD, all these high blood pressure, diabetes, being overweight, because they're not taught the knowledge of how to eat. And with that being the case, this is a prime example of why America has fallen behind scholastically of every industrialized nation. So her superpower status is diminishing daily because she's producing children that don't have the same intellectual level as they did in the preceding years. They're saying now, the scholars, saying, and the demographics are saying that America's children are the dumbest now, even though technology is at its all-time highest. And it's because it's going back to what is the systematic information that's being poured into them when they're sitting in these schools 6-7 hours a day. Are they being taught pertinent information that would allow them to be productive and not just a system of people that's in debt and have no way of understanding, hey, how to get out of this debt, because I don't know how I got into debt. And this is, I know for me, it's a story that you see every day, especially in the lower class neighborhoods, because of our lack of money. And as you said, if the parent doesn't have financial literacy, she can't pass that on to me. If she doesn't have dietary laws, she can't pass that on to me. If she don't have relationship laws and how to deal with my anger, then she can't pass that on to me. So guess who I'm gonna turn to? We walk around now, our children at a very young age are walking around with a weapon of mass distractions in their pocket, their phones.
No, and to your point, those are some of the circumstances that we deal with. And because of these circumstances, they like to evaluate us as having a learning disability or having a learning disorder. Is it a comment came in? Go ahead and read it.
A comment came in saying, starting this year, they added economics and financial literacy as a required course.
Oh, is that high school level?
Yeah.
That's what it said? Okay.
That's beautiful.
That's wonderful. But then I don't
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear that comment.
Starting this year, they added economics and financial literacy as a required course.
It's wonderful if they did it.
What school? I guarantee it ain't all of them.
Popka.
Oh, okay. I guarantee you it ain't all the schools. And the thing is, and thank you for that comment, because it need to be known. But when I look back and when you think about, we think about communities when it comes to education. And we know our community is behind the 8 ball, way behind it. And when it comes to providing certain things in the school systems that majority of our children go to, we don't have a lot of those, those special programs, gifted programs. And then if they are there, the counselors are not telling them about it. You have a difficult time to even get your counselor to be able to have a conversation about your progress and your education to close out the year. And brothers, I don't know if and Minister, you may can attest to that a little bit, being in the education arena when it comes to that. But that's what I'm hearing, and that's what what's being shared with me from counselors. But that's something that we have to be mindful of, and that's why pushing for better education is very important. And if the parents don't know, and the student who goes to the school don't know, then who is going to tell them? You get what I'm saying? So it's very important that we understand these things. If you receive it through your peers, great. And you need to take action. And then you need to share it with your parents so that we can make sure that we are doing what we need to do to make sure that you have the best education there is. But Minister, that's reflecting back on what the ambassador just said. Is that the responsibility of the school, the parents, or the community when it comes to some of these things that are missing? And we know, if you go back, Minister, I think you mentioned when you first started to get bus over. I think it was in like the 70s when segregation started. So from that time, when we're thinking about it, from that time to right now, it's almost like are Black children receiving the education they need today? Now, I might have threw two questions at you, but you can only answer one of them if you like.
Well, and that's you when you mentioned whose responsibility is it, the school system, is it the parent, is it the student? It's actually all three. And like where we are now, we have a civic responsibility. And when I say the civic responsibility, it's like wherever your local school boards are, those members and what they're dictating, be engaged, because once they get it set, you may like it, you may not like it, but once it's set, that's what your child is going to be having to adhere to, whether it benefits them the way you think so or not. So that's why when you do have school board meetings and you have your school board in your district, you need to be talking to them to let them know what are the requirements. Because like it used to be, and I remember getting bused. In the third grade, I was in a all-Black school, and at that time, I can clearly remember that our teachers would tell us, in order to get ahead, I don't want to misquote it, but I know they said we had to be either 5 times better or 10 times better than our white counterparts. They will openly tell us this because in order to get ahead, that's what we were told. So we knew and I was in the third grade, we knew that mean we were coming out from a disadvantage. So to get to an advantage, we had to perform and do better. Now, they can't say that in the school system anymore. That's why when I say the civic responsibility, that means we have to make sure that what they put on the curriculum, what the teachers are being taught, and unfortunately, as great as we have wonderful teachers, but they have to follow a lot of guidelines and red tape that they have to meet before it gets down to the actual educating the children. So a lot of times they got to meet the red tape, and that red tape cuts into their teaching. So if your child makes it, that's great. If your child doesn't make it, now they got to pass this standardized test and they may fail it. So it's like, okay, that don't mean your child is dumb. Maybe they just missed it. Or the teacher didn't have the resources that's required. Or like, I think that was Ezekiel or you may have said that, Jeremiah, if a child has a bad diet, for example, if they're eating, and people are becoming aware, but if your child is eating too much sugar, they're going to be hyperactive when they get in school. And now they're going to label them as having ADHD. And now they're going to have to put them on drugs. And if you got 25 students and you got 3 or 4 of your students climbing on the desks and all over the place, you can't function. So now students are on drugs to keep them calm because you don't have them on a proper diet. So it's a lot that's going on. But as far as our students, it depends on who their teachers are. And as a parent, you have to be active because children learn at different levels. And you may find that some students are very academic and they don't need a lot of hands-on. Other students require a lot of hands-on teaching. So it's not a one-size-fit-all approach. So that's the challenge that a teacher has or a parent has. You need to know your child because it might work great. You can have three children. It might work great for 2, but for 1, it doesn't work. It don't mean that they have a learning disability. The application just don't work for them. And the system will push them forward and make them either pass or label them as a particular type student. And then by the time they get to a high school level, it's too late, or they're behind the curve, and now they're not going to be able to graduate, or they've lost all the chances of education. So it's really difficult for us, as I hate to use the term minorities, but because we don't make the rules, and like voting is so important, especially on a local level, because if we allow certain type of instruction, it might work great for some communities, but it might not be good for our community. And now we can't tell our child, at least the teacher can't tell a child, the black students or the black and brown students, y'all got to do this. Y'all got to be 5 times better, because they all have to be 5 times better, because the information being put in front of you is not designed for you. And in some cases, you're not a slow learner. You're just not exposed to, for example, if it was about financial literacy, if you haven't been taught that, you're not going to know that. And they are not, as far as I know, they're not teaching that in schools. If they're starting to do it now, like home economics, they might teach, like you learn geometry, you learn algebra 2, and even they'll have you teaching trigonometry, but you're not taught how to balance a checkbook. It's just incongruent. That's not congruent with logic.
No, and it goes back what Brother Ezekiel said, like he's talking about debt and credit. You know, you get into high school or college, or you get a credit card, you never was taught about, no one ever taught you about debt. You trying to figure out what is debt. And it's too late trying to figure out debt at that time. I mean, well, it ain't too late. I mean, at least you get it, but you're in debt now. So it's like, now I have to find out how to get out of debt. And you find so many college students that experience that. But when we look back, and thank you for sharing that, Brother Minister, because like even in a household with parents, the question becomes, are parents checking homework? And I was just reading Dr. Umar's book, Psychoacademics Holocaust. And in his book, I think I have it right here. In his book, he said the death of homework, because I did notice this at one time, like when you ask certain, like especially my grandchildren, sometimes I ask them about homework, and they'll say they either don't have homework, some will have homework, but they got these little systems in place. As a matter of fact, do you have homework, Aaron? Got homework? Okay. But one of the things he said in his book, he said the death of homework in the Black community is fueling the misdiagnosing of learning disabilities and thereby creating a permanent underclass out of Black boys who represent the bulk of America's most undesired young learners. I found that interesting because, there's a notion that you should learn whatever you learn between the school hours, between whatever time you go to school to whatever time you conclude school for that day. And we all know that's not true. Anything that we do in life, man, may require extra work. I mean, I'm in the field of accounting, and I will have to take work home with me. I'm always learning. That's what kind of discouraged my son really want to take over the business, because he said, you guys are always in school, you're always training, you're always learning. It's at one point we're gonna have to stop this somewhere. But son, like the minister said, you'll be learning the rest of your life. It's just if it's what it is. It's a part of growth. And that homework is very important, because that's what sometimes put our children behind the 8 ball as well, because now you're behind on your work, and now your teacher is concerned, and they're concerned maybe about your ability to learn and learn on the same level that some of your peers are learning on. but it has nothing to do with your learning. It just has something to do with the process of you receiving or inculcating information. And when we don't take certain things serious, then the chances are we're going to, put ourselves in a situation that it doesn't profit us none. It doesn't profit us. And so parents also, when it comes to, we got another question? Huh? Okay, go ahead. Let's hear the question.
Well, it was more of a statement.
Okay.
There has been issues, however, with counselors, especially not aligning student schedules with what they aspire to be. Counselors are a big issue.
Right. And see, that's what I've been hearing. That's what I know of, because like I said, I have clients that are counselors, and they are big on talking about how other counselors or other schools may not be the best fit for a child because their counselors are not active in the children's life, and giving them the guidance that they really need, because you need those people while you're in school. I don't remember if I ever talked. No, I'm gonna ask you, brothers. You was, in high school. Have you had interaction with counselors?
No. The only time those guidance counselors would come speak with you is if you was having problems. If a teacher went to them and said, hey, this child is a problem child, then they would come down and speak to you about your behavior. There was no, hey, what are your plans for the life? You need to take this particular class. Let's develop a curriculum that will allow you to reach that plan. So they didn't do that. And that's why I said the education, is definitely failing our children. And the stats show that. But to speak on the question concerning what is the parent's role in the education of their children. A parent's job is to create the expectations for their child and then give the emotional support to the child, encourage them, give them a value system to where education is at the forefront of that, no matter what field in life they may want. Because if you have a child that's a toddler, you have to create a curriculum for that child in order for it to begin to develop. You don't just let the child do whatever it wants to do. You have a discipline that, hey, this child needs to be doing this from this time. It's just like with those children, you create a routine. Once you create that routine and that child get used to doing that right there, that's what's the steps that start developing the discipline, because the child knows that this time I got to do this, at this time I have to do that. Just like the school system, they have different time frames for each particular class that you got to get to. So oh, my math class is at 2 o'clock or my science class is at 10 o'clock. You create routines, and routine turns into habits. So now we get into, are you allowing your child to develop those habits that will serve them well as they grow and to be able to reach whatever goals they have set for themselves for their life? So it starts at the home. You have to have that stability. You as the parent are that child's first teacher. When they go to school, that teacher's job is to instill in them professional instructions and to give assessments of that child to know that, hey, just because the school system says this is our curriculum, this particular child can't learn under this format. So we have to make adjustments. Let's send them over here. And they do that to a degree. That's why they have what they call the special ed classes. That, yeah, this child right here is a little mentally slower than everybody else. So let's put him over here with people that's on the same level as them. But the problem with a lot of these children, they're getting mixed diagnosed and saying that they have some type of issue when it's not the issue, it's the curriculum. I can't learn in this manner. I'm a visual learner, where this person may be an audio learner. So you have to understand, by doing that one-on-one assessment with me, what is the best method that will allow me to inculcate the information and then be able to apply it. Because you can look at it in sports. You have a quarterback that's in a particular system that don't fit his style of play. And then when they transfer him or trade him to another team, he flourishes because that system fits his style of play. And this is what the parents as well as the teachers need to be having conferences about the child, not just saying, hey, your child is bad or your child is disruptive. Hey, understand the education part of your child. Your child has this particular talent or skill, so he'll be a better fit doing this, this, or this. And I think, again, the parents have the major role in that. And the problem with lower income parents is they're working. So they don't have the time to sit down and put the information into the child or listen to what the child is being taught. Most parents don't know what's going on at their child's school. They just know they go to school and they come home. They have no understanding of what's being taught because, as you said, they're not sitting in on these meetings that are producing the curriculum for the school system. So the school may be teaching something that's opposite of the values that I'm teaching at my home. But if my child is in that school system 7-8 hours a day and only getting an hour or two me at home, then we understand that that 7 hours a day is information is going to weigh and influence my child way more than the 1 or 2 hours I got. So as my child begin to grow, I'm wondering why they being disobedient to me. That's logic. Whoever creates the spirit of information that you indulging in is going to have the greater influence on your way of thinking, which means that your actions and your habits are going to reflect that. We back to what we started with this on our diet. So your mental diet is going to produce a particular type of child. So parents got to be, just like at a young age, they don't allow their children to be exposed to certain things because they feel they're too young for that information. So you have to stay on top of all the information, from the TV shows to the music, to the people, the friends you have, because those are influences that unfortunately create the mindset of that child.
And I think it goes back to confidence, because as you were speaking, I'm thinking about a young parent that, didn't wasn't raised in a household that, instilled into the value of education. And now they have a child that's going to school that may be struggling. Isn't there a confidence level sometimes when it comes to helping your child with homework that, doesn't, look familiar to you? And also talking to a teacher who you feel is way more educated than you, and I don't even know what words to even come out my mouth with. And it's almost like you stuck in limbo watching your child go through this process, and it's almost like you can't do nothing. And that when I'm looking at that, minister, what are you telling a young parent like that they don't understand the history of this public school system, don't know that it wasn't created for us, and we have to be a lot more active in our child's life than we may be at this time? What are we saying to that young person?
See, that's a complex question, and it's social economic, because a young parent, especially if they're a single parent, but even if they two parent, the school, unfortunately, it becomes daycare for the children. So you drop them off in an education system, and you're thinking the education system is supposed to be there for them. It is, but it's much more complex. Like when I graduated, fortunately, I went to a smaller school. I'm gonna say smaller. I went to a predominantly Black school, Jones High School. I'm gonna call it out by name. And we had guidance counselors, but because we were tight knit, they wanted to make sure, first of all, that you were going to graduate. If you weren't going to graduate, they wanted to get you need to be taking A, B, C, D. So we're going to make sure you go graduate. And then if you go graduate, what are your plans for after you graduate? And the school that you're in and the environment makes a big difference. Now, you fast forward this 30 years where we're integrated fully into schools where we are no longer the majority, where in most cases we're like in a mixed school and we're a minority and everything is digital. You have guidance counselors there, but if you're working, especially if you work in 2 jobs, they're going to put everything in a portal for your child. And if you're not looking in that portal on a weekly, monthly, in some case daily basis, you're not going to find out that your child is behind until you get a progress report or a report card that says they're failing or they're behind. It's been put in that portal, but now you have to be responding. You now have to go make a appointment to see their guidance counselor, to get with the teacher, and it's complex. So if you're a young parent and you're trying to pay the rent and the car note, it becomes very difficult to keep up with your child who may be bringing homework on, let's say if it's in geometry and you're not familiar with that, or English lit. That stuff may go right over your head and you can't help them with their homework. There may be tutors available, but the social economic, meaning you can't afford to pay a tutor. And most tutors aren't free. Some have access. So now your child gets a report card that they're failing, and you're like saying, what? Now you're behind playing catch up. So it is, if you're going to be in the system and the system requires certain things, you need to know that this is what's going to be required of your child, and this is what's going to be required of you. Otherwise, if your child is not a strong swimmer, they might sink. And you're not going to be able to give them a life raft to help them. And unfortunately, that happens often in our community, especially when you have socioeconomic, meaning you have finances, or if a child going to school and they didn't have a good breakfast. Most of the schools do have free lunches and breakfasts, and it's great, but they getting ready to pull that back. But if a child goes to school hungry, by 11 o'clock, their brain is not going to be functioning. So it's just a lot going on, especially if you're in a home where you can't make sure that they ate before they left home and you're trying to get to work. So you're just dropping them off or they catching a bus.
And if you allow them too much sugar, they're going to crash at a certain time. So it's like you have to know that you have to make sure that your child has a balanced meal for going to school so that they can learn. Because that's how these diagnoses occur when it comes to SLD, specific learning disability, or ADHD, because they're jumping around everywhere. So that's how all these diagnoses end up happening to our youth in our community, because everything started at home. That's going back, a parent responsibility, homework, making sure we're checking homework, communicating with the teachers, because like your brother said, like if they're going to work all day, that's enough frustration as it is. Now you have to come home and read to your child, which ain't nothing bad about reading, as long as the child know how to read. But if you now have to teach them how to read, then that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you just reading, that's another thing. But then the other side of that is talking about your future. How many of us talk to our children about their future? You should always be doing this here. But if we're not checking homework or creating some type of homework, I'll just create something. Communicating with teachers, reading to the child and talking to them about their future, then how can we blame the school system for everything if we're not involved in the education of our own children? And that becomes the question, because a lot of times we do talk about the school system, But most people that talk about the school system isn't implementing something at home, because we know the school system isn't, made or created for our children, the public school system that is. And it's difficult even trying to get into a private school. So now the challenge becomes, okay, let's create homeschool. Well, if you got mom and dad is going out working and mom has to stay home and educate the children, that's income that's taken from the household. So these are the different dynamics that we have to deal with. But it still has to be a foundation, in my opinion. It still has to be a foundation at home that can guide the child. But all they're doing is extracting the professional information that Brother Ezekiel was talking about from the teachers, whether it's arithmetic or, English or science or whatever that may be. You're just extracting that information. But the foundational information you're receiving at home. So, Ezekiel, are we expecting enough from our children academically, or are we trapped in the world of, and I'm going to ask you this question. I just popped up with this question. I know you can speak, you'll probably be able to speak to this here. Or are we trapped in the world of getting rich from our children athleticism, if you will?
Oh, no doubt. When you look at the difference between the minority communities as opposed to their counterparts, the main tool that's fostered upon our children at a young age is sports. We go to school and we believe that school is an afterthought. We're in school because it's mandated in order to play the sports, you have to be in school. But you got to think, these children play sports year round. So how many hours are they pouring into developing their physical skill set, as opposed to the hours that they need to be pouring into developing their mental skill set? The parents are getting their car and take their children all over the state to games, to practices. But are they spending that same energy sit down teaching them how to read, how to save, how credit works, how to understand dealing with your emotions when one of your friends die or a family member die? Are we pouring that same amount of energy into us? And the question is absolutely, or the answer is absolutely not. We're still with the mindset of the early 16 to 1700s of making our children physically strong, but they're being mentally weak because we're not putting education over sports. And we have to understand that it's only a very, very minute amount of sports players that make a living off of that right there. The average child, when they graduate high school, they don't have a college scholarship, but they've been playing football for 10, 11 years of their life. They've accumulated numerous hours practicing. Even when they're not on the team practicing, they're home practicing, trying to hone their skill set. They may spend hours dribbling a football or catching or throwing a football. So it's unfortunately that we put such a big price tag on physical abilities instead of pouring that same energy into becoming a chef, becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer. The routines that's at the house, the parents are not developing routines to where these children have a morning routine. When they get up, those first 20, 30 minutes, what are your children doing? Are they reaching for the phone, scrolling just to see what's going on in the world? Or do they have a routine where they get up, they exercise, they get their body flowing, they read something that's inspirational or spiritual to get their day started? Those first 20, 30 minutes is supposed to belong to them. But they give that away when they get up and they turn on the TV scrolling or they on their phone scrolling. You're giving your life over to the rest of the world instead of taking that time out for you. So our parents creating routines. We know children, they develop habits. And according to, what psychologists you study under, they say habits take X amount of days to learn, which is not true. Habits are created through repetition. So if I'm practicing something 100, 200, 300 times a day, and you're only practicing it 4 or 5 times a day, yeah, it may take you 21 days to get there, but it may take me 2 days to get there because the amount of effort that I'm putting into it. So it's about repetition. So if I want my child to become a good reader, then I have to make sure that they're reading at least 10, 15, 20 an hour a day instead of watching TV shows for 2-3 hours. And unfortunately, when you look at the stats on that, Black children watch TVs on an average 3 to 4 hours more than their counterparts. So now, who's influencing your child? The writers of these TV shows, are they teaching the same values that you're instilling in your children at the house? Because if they're not, then now they're becoming the new teacher, because now they have the influence on your child. So when your child begins to become disobedient from your house rules, then you have to look at where's the sources of this rebellion coming from. And that's when you have to stay on top of what are they listening to? What are they watching? What information that they're inputting? They may be reading books, but what type of books are they reading? Are they reading things that's going to help them develop themselves in the area that they can be prosperous in life, or are they reading books that's just mindless entertainment to pass time? In the early 2000s, we had an explosion of what they call the urban books. So everybody was reading the urban books, and I thought it was fantastic because these were stories written by people in urban communities that the readers could relate to. So it was a start just to get them reading. Now you start them off on that, and then you wean them away. And now let's start reading books on finances. Let's start reading books on emotions, on personal development. That's what the parents don't have. They don't have a personal development program for their child. They expect the school system to have that. And the school system is not one mindset fits all. Their curriculum is for everybody, but again, your child may not have that capability. So it's not tailored for your child. Again, if I want to be a chef, I can't be going to astronaut school. I have to stay on the path that's going to put me and allow me to reach my goal. So the parents have to have goals for their children. They have them physically. When they take them out there to sports, they want them to win the Super Bowl or win the championship. That's the goal. That's what they're practicing toward. So, okay, what's the educational goal? What's the spiritual goal? What's the financial goal? What's the relationship goal for your children? You got to have those goals set for your children, and then you have to create a curriculum that will allow your child to reach those goals. If you're a single parent and you don't like a certain type of man, and then you have male children that you're raising, are you making sure that your child has the exact opposite traits that you don't like in a man? If you don't like disrespectful men, are you teaching your son how to be respectful? So the parents have to start being more accountable in the daily life of their children, and instead of allowing, as you say, in school, TVs, music, social media to be the new babysitter, and then wondering why your child coming out in a manner that you didn't want them to come out. Because again, if I'm spending more time doing one thing as opposed to doing what you want me to do, don't be surprised when I'm going to be this instead of what you want me to be, because that's where my mind was. Again, the mental diet determines the habits. The habits produce the actions. And the actions is going to create the consequences that you may not like because it's adverse to what you wanted your child to learn.
Hey, that was, I had a follow-up on that, but we got to go to a quick commercial break.
Because Scott and Associates always treats me like family, I refer my family to them. So when preparing for my taxes and I know exactly what to bring in coming in, it makes the process so much easier. Anyone should hire Scott and Associates because they are professional, respectful, and very knowledgeable. And with all of my heart, I can always count on them.
At NOY Store, we bring culture, style, and wellness all in one place. Explore our collection of cultural apparel designed to inspire and connect. From t-shirts to polos, boldly tell your story. Need guidance on your journey? Check out our books written to inspire and support your spiritual, personal, and community growth. And give your body the care it deserves with our health and wellness products like natural toothpaste, soothing body butters, and more. We're always adding new products to empower your life so you can live with purpose and style. Visit NOYstore.com today, where culture, wellness, and inspiration come together. Shop at NOYstore.com.
All right. Welcome back. Let's put up on there because we have the Vocational Trade Expo Fair, our third annual Vocational Trade Expo Fair coming up October the 24th. That's October the 24th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. All right. It's not in front of me and I can't see up there. Screen. Okay. So let's make sure that we can go to Live Talk. Do we have that? The link? LiveTalkORL.com that we can scroll across the screen so that people can know how they can register for this event. And the good thing about registering for the event, it's a free event. It's a free community event. The only reason we like for you to register for the event, because once you register for the event, it sends you automatically notifications about when the event is about to happen. So just registering, you'll get automatically notified when the event approaches. So definitely register for the event. Do we have the website on Live Talk? Is it on there on the screen?
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. Want to make sure. All right. So that information should be scrolling down our screen. That's the flyer right there. For more information, you can text that number. The number is 407-545-5930. All right, take it down. All right, brothers. I know we're getting close to the end, and it's a lot when it comes to talking about education. And the reason I want to highlight the third annual Vocational Trade Expo Fair is because a part of what we was going to talk about today, and we'll come back in and we'll do a part 2 to this here. We're going to talk about college, trades, career preparation. And I don't want to miss that part there. Yeah, I don't want to miss that part there. So I want to make sure that we come back and we can really get into that particular part there. All right, but we're going to continue with this conversation today, but we're going to talk about Black boys and discipline and that expectation of how we groom our young men. And I want to go into that direction because there's another part of education that we don't talk about enough, and that's discipline. And particularly when we're talking about Black boys. And Minister, what was discipline like when you was growing up? And do you think Black boys are being disciplined differently in schools than other students?
Now, the first part of that question. And discipline when I was growing up was a whole different level of discipline.
Right.
The same teachers who told you had to be 5 times better, if you in their classroom disrupting, acting up, or talking out, they would get a ruler and they would slap your hand. If you got too much out of line, they would turn it over and they would crack it across your knuckles. And that was allowed to be done. And it was not an issue. Now, they can't do that now, but if the teacher, if you got unruly with the teacher would send you to the principal. And the principal had a big board literally over his door or mounted over his chair, where when you walked in the office, you could see it. And if you thought you got too sporty, you would bend over that chair and he would put that paddle on your backside. Now, that's not allowed in schools anymore, but that was allowed then, and the discipline was totally different. Now, when you fast forward to now, and of course you can't touch someone's child, and we have progressed and we've learned that there's different ways of discipline. But when it comes to Black youth, it's like, depending on the teacher, our youth can appear to be threatening if they're not familiar with our culture. So they can be suspended or put on a stricter discipline because of the way they talk, because of their mannerisms, whereas their counterparts who are not Black wouldn't be put on the same issue just because they're cultural differences. So you have to be able to discipline, but you have to learn to be able to cross cultural lines and understand how to get through to them. And a lot of that goes back to the home, because you have to be able to discipline your child at home. Because if you don't want someone, for example, nowadays people say, don't touch my child, then you should teach your child to be respectful, especially to respect adults. Because if they don't respect you at home, they're not going to respect a teacher when they get in school. So now the teacher has no choice but to refer them, and now they're going to be getting either put in detention or in worst cases, they're going to be getting expelled. And so that's what I'm saying. It's a broad thing when it comes to discipline, because when I was growing up, we were taught that you had to respect your elders. You didn't talk back to grown people. Like, you don't talk back to grown folk. That's something you just did not do. And it could be someone that was down the street. You talk back to grown folk, especially guys can do it, but girl, or you roll your eyes at grown folk, you were going to get literally smacked in your mouth. And you knew that was something that you didn't do, because that adult would then either tell your parent or bring you back to your parent, and then your parent was going to continue it. And I know there's the thing about abusing children, and yes, you can talk to them and there's a way, but there's a fine line of, you have to have that discipline in check, because if your child doesn't have discipline when they leave the home, they're like unchecked when they get into the public. And how do you expect a teacher to deal with your child who might be a 190-pound linebacker, and you got a 125-pound teacher? If he's not respecting you at home, he's not going to respect that 125-pound teacher. So there's a very fine line of what is discipline and what is not.
So we got a comment? Huh? What's the comment? Question.
But is respect earned or given, even to elders?
Okay. Yukiz, you want to take that one?
Respect is most definitely earned. You know, you have to show yourself worthy of that right there. But as for younger children, you have to understand how do they discern that. So if you talking, education wise, first through fifth grade, they may not know how to see that this elder deserves respect because they don't know the values that go into deciding if somebody is worthy of that. And as an older child, middle school to high school, then yes, you definitely earn their respect by your character in the classroom as the teacher or the principal or whatever school role you may have. You can earn that right there. But when you first start in school, just like school just started, as an elder child, you have to give them that respect because you just now meeting them. You're just now coming in their classroom. So you don't want to be disruptive right off the bat. So you give them a chance to earn your respect.
I think it kind of goes back to what the minister said as well. Is the respect that you show, like as parents. One of the things that I'm big on as a parent is, teaching my child the importance of respecting authority first and foremost, because I want them to turn back home, and authority in the classroom, authority in the school. Respect that. You shouldn't be disrespectful, regardless of how someone may disrespect you at that time. It's not to say you accept someone disrespecting you, but it's to know that you have a different character than that person, because the scriptures say a soft answer turns away wrath. Like when a person can see your character and identify you as being a good person, then they even if it's a person that people would rub the wrong way, and they always have this negative mean demeanor about themselves. And I'm talking about a staff member. I'm talking about a dean or someone of that nature that dealing with children that's disruptive all day, and now you got this mindset of every child that looked like this child, or maybe the same complexion as this child, is going to give me the same energy as the two children I just was dealing with. So now you come off in a way to this child in a wrong way that's disrespectful. But it's how that child responds to him, in my opinion, that's going to turn away that wrath that he may be feeling in him and say, oh, this child ain't the same as the other two children I was dealing with. Because we do have to understand the circumstances that we all go through and encounter daily in order to justify if a person being disrespectful to us or they're just being stern with us, if that makes sense. Or what is that the proper term to use? Understand?
And see that, and that's a great question about being earned or given. It has to be earned, but it also has to be given. But you have to, and we talk about in the school system, because the first day of school or even prior to, you get to go meet your teacher and you get to bring the student. If you don't come and meet the teacher hasn't met you, the teacher hasn't met your child, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, because most of the teachers, you meet them on the first day of school. You get they'll schedule that you get to meet the other students, the parents. You can talk to that teacher. You can talk to them about your child. You can talk to them about your child's strengths. You can talk to them about your child's weaknesses. So you all are on the same page. And that's both ways. So let's say you have a child that's mild-mannered and excellent. That's great. And we have to be honest, because we have to be very honest. Depending on your child, you know how your child is. You can tell the teacher your child's strength. You can tell the teacher your child's weaknesses or where they gonna need some help at, or their behavioral issues. Like, please don't pretend that your child is an angel when you know your child driving you crazy at night doing XYZ. And all children might not be like that, but some are. So then now we need to be talking about solutions to get your child the best environment and the best education. You have really great teachers, but if a teacher has 25 students, that the purpose is that earn respect is, let's get here and get this started off right. And parents, you need to show up. So you can understand your child and your teacher. Like, when I grew up, my father and my mother were on opposite ends of discipline. My father believed in spare the rod, spoil the child. His rod was a belt. My mother, compared to him, was an angel. I don't remember her doing anything other than a bedroom slipper, which was made out of cotton. And I knew that you don't mess with my father, because if what was he saying? I tell you to be on the first dot. And I'm drawing a picture. So if he told you to be at 9 o'clock, you better not come at 9:02. You better not come at 9:01. You better be there at 9 o'clock. But my mother's love and discipline was different. And even though I had a fear and respect of my father, I would not want to disappoint my mother, because it hurt me more to discipline her because of the respect that she gave and earned than the fear and respect I got from my father. So you have to be able to move that forward into your child, so they understand that if they want to get that respect, they have to be able to give it. And as parents, we have to be able to do the same thing when you're turning your children over to somebody for 8 hours a day all throughout a school year.
Indeed. Let's get into this episode. So I will ask you brothers to give us some last word. Starting with you, Yikiziki.
Education in all forms is important. So as a parent, uncle, anybody with children, invest in your child's education, because that's what's going to lead to their success or their failure.
Minister.
Yeah, education starts at home. You are at the beginning of your child's education, so give them a bright start and a bright future.
I'll just say I'm gonna leave you with what my brothers just shared. There's a lot of information when it comes to this topic, this subject, and I definitely want us to come back and do a part 2, because there's more information that we can share on this topic. But for right now, I'm gonna say peace and prosperity. And from Live Talk, we are out.
Thank you for watching Live Talk. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit on the notification button so that you can see more videos like this. You want to join the show? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook and Instagram at Arthur Jeremiah. And visit the website, thenoystore.com, to pick up your copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name.